where are we now with the bankruptcy filings and the impact of Chapter 11 and the bankruptcy laws, the local laws, in the negotiation of leases and other type of creditors?
Thank you, Gonzalo. It's a pleasure to be here, and we have very limited time, so I will get straight into the topic. Virtually all leases throughout the region and perhaps throughout the world are being renegotiated now. Airlines have been hit in an unprecedented way. There's a possible exception with cargo aircraft, but otherwise virtually all leases are being renegotiated. In Latin America, the airlines tend to rely disproportionately on leases. In Brazil, for instance, I would say it's close to 100%, if not 100% of the fleets are leased. So all of the leases are now in renegotiation. There's a combination of rent deferrals, which is the most common way of dealing with the current crisis, sometimes some rent reductions, and occasionally some changes to the length of lease terms. If an airline is unable to renegotiate enough of its leases fast enough, then they have to go to some sort of bankruptcy restructuring. And what we have seen, as you've mentioned, are two major airlines in the region, LATAM from Chile, but it's misleading to say it's only from Chile because LATAM's Brazilian branch is one of the major airlines here, and they also have operating companies in several other jurisdictions in the region. So, and Avianca from Colombia. So these two have sought Chapter 11 protection in the United States. They did not file under their local laws. What we see here in Brazil is a lot of uncertainty as to whether the other two major carriers, which are Azul and Gol, might follow in their steps and follow Chapter 11, or if they might file for bankruptcy restructuring in Brazil under a procedure called judicial recuperation. There are several differences between Chapter 11 and local laws. I'm going to deal with some of the differences between the Brazilian law and Chapter 11, and I'll do them very quickly so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. In Brazil, Chapter 11 type protection is called judicial recuperation. We have had, since the law became effective, 7 airlines seek chapter or judicial recuperation. 6 no longer exist. 1 still exists, although it's very small. So it has not been a very successful process. And the Brazilian law does not allow for the restructuring of leases. So aircraft leases are excluded from the entire process. So a company, an airline that files in Brazil would not be able to restructure its leases. This is a reason to go for Chapter 11. And this is probably one of the things that influence the other 2 airlines that you mentioned. In Chapter 11, there's a loss of equity in almost all cases, which is not always the case in Brazil, but in any event, the value of equity falls very quickly. There are advantages and disadvantages. It's generally our view that Chapter 11 is possible for Gol and Azul, but we think it's less likely than a local filing, or perhaps there would be a combination of filings. Now, some people have heard of Chapter 15, and so for a moment, I'll just explain. Chapter 15 is a United States procedure that would not be the primary insolvency reorganization procedure. It's a protective procedure. So if a Brazilian company were to file for judicial recuperation in Brazil, they might also file Chapter 15 in the United States. That just means that a US bankruptcy court would issue an order that protects the Brazilian procedure or the assets of that debtor in the United States while the procedure is being administered. But the main proceeding would be in the local jurisdiction. This has all generated a lot of discussion about something we call PIJ, primary insolvency jurisdiction. It's also a Cape Town issue, this concept, because both the Chilean and Colombian courts are being asked to recognize that New York is the primary insolvency jurisdiction for these airlines that are based in their respective countries. This could happen in Brazil. We believe it's less likely, but it could happen in Brazil. And time will tell. It will depend on whether the lease negotiations can be concluded in time to avoid this. But it is a very real risk. And literally there are rumors every day. This morning I had 3 emails saying, oh, there's rumors about Gold, rumors about Azul. They literally come up every day. So hopefully we'll have more clarity in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Ken.